Have you ever felt like a visit, meant to bring joy, turned into an uncomfortable situation instead? As we age, our need for connection grows stronger, but sometimes it can lead us down a path of unexpected discomfort. You might visit a friend's house thinking you're just catching up, only to realize they don't feel the same way. Maybe their family isn't as welcoming as you thought, or perhaps your casual conversations stir up tension that wasn't there before. In this video, we're diving into the reality of visiting others in your later years, especially when it's not always as simple as it seems. From well-meaning visits that end up causing trouble to the awkwardness of economic disparity between friends and neighbors, we'll explore the nuances of socializing as we get older. You'll hear stories like Mike's, who, thinking he was invited out of friendship, discovered the hard way that his frequent visits were not as welcome as he imagined. We'll also look at how too much interaction can lead to gossip and misunderstandings, like Sarah's story, where a simple comment spiraled into family conflict. By the end of this video, you'll gain insight into why sometimes it's better to stay home, avoid unnecessary visits, and maintain peaceful boundaries. You'll learn how to balance your social life in a way that avoids discomfort and keeps your relationships healthy. Trust me, you don't want to miss the valuable lessons shared here. Watch till the end and find out how to navigate these tricky social waters with ease. If you are not subscribed, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. 1. Visiting is a form of disturbance. Visiting someone, especially in the later years of life, often carries a weight that we may not fully recognize until it's too late. We think of visits as a chance to reconnect, a way to feel part of someone's life again, but sometimes they can inadvertently turn into an unwelcome disturbance. The dynamics of family life change as we get older. It's not just about the act of visiting. It's about the way we fit, or don't fit, into the lives of others, particularly when they have their own established routines and comfort zones. Each family has its own rhythm, its own set of unspoken boundaries, and what might seem like a warm invitation to one person may not feel as welcome to others. As we age, we no longer have the same energy to juggle family obligations, nor do we always realize that our presence, however well-intended, can disrupt the peace and balance that others work so hard to maintain. Take Mike, my next-door neighbor. He's a man in his 60s, kind-hearted and genuinely sociable, but also a bit careless when it comes to reading between the lines. He's not someone who second-guesses an invitation or wonders whether his visit will be a burden. One afternoon, while walking around the neighborhood, he ran into a high school classmate. After chatting for a few minutes, Mike was surprised to find out that they lived in the same community, right next door to each other. The joy of reconnecting with someone from his youth was overwhelming. He had fond memories of their time together back in the day, and naturally, he was thrilled by the coincidence. His classmate, noticing Mike's enthusiasm, invited him over to his house for a few drinks and some food. Mike, who loved a good drink but didn't have many people to share it with, was elated. It felt like an unexpected gift. In his mind, this was the start of rekindling an old friendship, a chance to relive the good times. He went over that weekend with a dish in hand, eager to share a few laughs and memories. But something felt off when he arrived. His classmate's wife greeted him with a look that Mike couldn't quite place, a mix of polite discomfort and forced cheerfulness. Mike, however, was too caught up in the joy of seeing his old friend again to notice the subtle tension in the air. He drank, laughed, and left that evening with the feeling that everything had gone well, that his visit had been a success. However, as the weeks passed, Mike's visits became more frequent. Every weekend, without fail, he would bring another dish and join his classmates for drinks. What he didn't realize was that each of these visits was creating an uncomfortable situation for his classmates' wife and children. They felt as though their personal space was being invaded, their weekends disrupted by a guest who didn't quite understand how his presence affected the household. They had their plans and their routines, and Mike's frequent visits, though well-meaning, were slowly but surely beginning to feel like an intrusion. Mike, being oblivious to the growing discomfort, continued his visits, thinking everything was fine. It wasn't until one day, after yet another drink-filled weekend, that his classmate finally pulled him aside and shared the truth. "Mike, you're a great guy, but you need to understand that your visits are starting to cause tension at home," he said. "Every time you come over, my wife and kids get upset. They feel like their lives are being disturbed." The words hit Mike hard. He had never considered the effect his presence might have had on the family. The invitation, he now realized, was just a polite gesture, an obligation, not an open call for a regular visitor. It had been an invitation to reconnect, but not one that anticipated a weekly routine. His friend had been too kind to say anything sooner, not wanting to hurt Mike's feelings, but the strain was becoming too much to ignore. Mike's heart sank as he processed what his friend had said. He had misread the situation completely. What had started as an innocent, joyful reunion had become a source of stress for the family. He had assumed that his presence was wanted, that his friend's invitation was genuine in its offer of regular company. But now he realized that it had been more of a courtesy, a polite gesture that had unwittingly crossed a line. This experience was a hard lesson for Mike, and for anyone who might be in a similar position. It's easy to take an invitation at face value, to assume that people want you around because you want to be there. But what we often fail to realize is that not everyone is in the same place emotionally or mentally. Families have their own needs, and sometimes they require space and privacy, even from those they consider friends. A visit, even with the best of intentions, can quickly become a disturbance if it's not aligned with the dynamics of the household. Mike learned the value of reading between the lines, understanding the subtle cues that tell us when our presence is truly wanted and when it might be better to give someone the space they need. It also taught him the importance of communication. Had he asked, had he been more aware of how his visits were affecting his friend's family, he might have saved himself from the discomfort of learning this lesson too late. And most importantly, Mike learned that not every invitation is meant to be taken seriously. Sometimes, it's just a polite formality, a social nicety, and recognizing that can save both parties from unnecessary tension and misunderstandings. As we age, it's crucial to understand that our presence can be both a gift and a burden. It's not just about the intention behind a visit, but about respecting the needs of others and knowing when it's time to step back. Sometimes, the most caring thing we can do for others is to simply give them the space they need to maintain their peace and harmony. 2. Frequent visits can cause trouble. As we grow older, one of the deepest fears we often face is the creeping feeling of loneliness. The hustle and bustle of life slows down, leaving us with more time on our hands and fewer things to occupy us. We find ourselves yearning for companionship, the warmth of conversation, and the familiarity of shared experiences. Having someone to talk to, and someone to share our thoughts and feelings with, becomes a vital part of our daily routine. It's no surprise that many elderly people, particularly those who have spent years living in the same community, begin to visit one another frequently. It feels like the natural thing to do. After all, a little company can brighten the dullest of days. And yet, as many will discover, too much of even the most innocent forms of connection can lead to unforeseen consequences. Frequent visits, though seemingly harmless, can sometimes bring more harm than good. What starts as an innocent, well-meaning way to pass the time can quickly spiral into something more complicated. The problem lies in the fact that, when people gather, they tend to talk, sometimes too much. With many voices, many opinions, and many thoughts being shared, it's almost inevitable that things can be said that shouldn't be, or worse, things can be misunderstood. This is a hard truth that Sarah, a woman who lives upstairs, learned the hard way. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Sarah had always been a social person. She was active, enjoying the camaraderie of her neighbors and the companionship of others in the community. After she retired, she became more involved in square dancing with the ladies in her building. It was something she truly loved. The exercise, the laughter, the energy that flowed through her as she danced with people she had known for years. She had also started enjoying simple, laid-back afternoons with the group, gathering at each other's homes for tea and gossip when the weather turned bad or when it was simply too rainy to dance. These gatherings, filled with chatter and laughter, were meant to fill the void left by retirement and to provide some lightness in her life. She never thought they would lead to trouble. But as with all things in life, too much of anything can start to unravel, and that's exactly what happened to Sarah. One afternoon, during one of their regular visits at John's home, the conversation took a turn towards family matters. As often happens in small communities, discussions about relationships, children, and spouses arise, sometimes quite naturally. On this particular day, they were talking about the dynamics between mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law. It was a light-hearted topic, one that sparked both empathy and humor in the group. But Sarah, being Sarah, couldn't resist joining in with her thoughts. She casually mentioned how her daughter-in-law, whom she loved but didn't always see eye to eye with, lacked a certain level of initiative in the home. Sarah, being honest but not malicious, suggested that perhaps living with an only child had made her daughter-in-law a bit too spoiled, too accustomed to being pampered. She thought it was a harmless observation, a casual comment that anyone might make about their own family. But what Sarah failed to realize was that, in the context of a small, tightly knit community where gossip travels faster than light, her words would soon take on a life of their own. Before she knew it, her casual remark about her daughter-in-law's behavior reached the ears of the very person she had been talking about. The innocent observation that Sarah had made in jest suddenly took on an entirely different meaning. Her daughter-in-law, feeling hurt and betrayed by the implication that she wasn't good enough for her husband or her family, became upset. She interpreted Sarah's words as a harsh judgment, as though she was being criticized for her upbringing, her marriage, and her role in the family. What had started as a simple conversation over tea now turned into a source of tension that threatened to disrupt the harmony within Sarah's own home. Living with her son and daughter-in-law, Sarah found herself in an extremely awkward situation. The once warm and comfortable household became a place of tension, where every word was scrutinized and every gesture was met with suspicion. Her daughter-in-law became cold, distant, and unresponsive, while her son, who had always been understanding, now scolded Sarah for gossiping. The casual comment, meant to be nothing more than a passing thought, had set off a chain of events that Sarah couldn't undo. She tried to explain herself, to clarify that she hadn't meant any harm, that her words had been taken out of context. But her daughter-in-law remained unmoved, her cold demeanor making it clear that there was no way to fix what had been said. Her son, too, sided with his wife, reprimanding Sarah for stirring the pot, for saying things that were better left unsaid. Sarah, who had always believed in the value of open communication and honesty, was left feeling betrayed and isolated. It was at this moment that Sarah began to rethink the idea of frequent visits. What had once been a source of joy and connection now felt like a double-edged sword. She realized that sometimes when you spend too much time with others, you risk crossing boundaries, saying things that you might regret later, and causing harm to relationships that you hold dear. Sarah understood that the more people involved in a conversation, the greater the chance for misunderstanding and conflict. Words, once spoken, cannot be taken back, and they can take on meanings that you never intended. From that day forward, Sarah chose to keep her interactions with others more reserved. She continued to dance with her friends, to laugh and enjoy their company, but she kept her thoughts about family, especially her daughter-in-law, to herself. She no longer visited others as frequently, and when she did, she was more cautious with her words. She realized that sometimes it's better to stay home, to enjoy a quiet day alone than to risk causing a rift with the people you care about. The lesson Sarah learned was one of wisdom and restraint. Too many words can easily be twisted, and sometimes, The best way to avoid unnecessary conflict is to simply enjoy the company of others without diving too deep into personal matters. It's enough to laugh, to share stories, and to keep things light. There's no need to dig too deep, to explore sensitive topics that might bring discomfort or hurt. Sarah's advice to anyone her age was simple. Visit your neighbors and enjoy their company, but remember that sometimes less is more. And above all, be mindful of the words you speak, because, as she learned the hard way, they have the power to hurt far more than you could ever imagine. 3. Different economic conditions can cause psychological imbalance. Economic disparities can deeply influence our psychological state, often in ways we don't fully recognize at first. It's a silent force that shapes our interactions, our self-perception, and even the way we view others. Even within the same community, the gap between families' financial situations can be stark. Some families have more than enough to live comfortably, while others are just scraping by, doing their best to get through each day. On the surface, it may appear that everyone is coexisting peacefully, but as we delve deeper into the realities of these economic differences, we see how much strain they can put on relationships. The simple act of visiting each other can create uncomfortable tension, especially when there are significant disparities in wealth. The wealthier family may not even realize it, but their displays of comfort and success can inadvertently create feelings of inferiority in the less fortunate family. And those feelings, though often unspoken, can cause a psychological rift, a silent divide that grows with every visit. The psychological effects of these visits are not just about feeling uncomfortable in the moment. They accumulate over time, eroding self-esteem and triggering envy. It's only natural to compare ourselves to others. It's something that most of us do, consciously or not. But when this comparison becomes a regular part of our social interactions, it becomes more than just an occasional thought. It becomes a weight, an emotional burden we carry with us. Even the elderly, who have lived long lives and witnessed many changes, are not immune to this phenomenon. They, too, find themselves comparing their circumstances to those of others. The desire for a better life, for more comfort, is universal, and when they are constantly exposed to those who seem to have everything, it stirs up a sense of dissatisfaction and regret. The reality is that these social visits, though meant to foster connection, often have the opposite effect. Instead of feeling uplifted and enriched by spending time with others, we feel drained. What was once a moment of shared experience and camaraderie now feels like a source of pressure and discomfort. Even the most well-meaning hosts can unknowingly contribute to this growing sense of unease. As the less fortunate family leaves these gatherings, they may find themselves carrying more than just the memories of the visit. They carry the weight of comparison, frustration, and sometimes even resentment. It becomes harder to avoid the mental trap of feeling like they are lacking, as though they are somehow less deserving of happiness or success. This dynamic is not just a personal issue, it's a societal one. It speaks to the way we, as a society, often place value on material wealth and success, subtly reinforcing the idea that those who have more are somehow more deserving. It's an uncomfortable truth, but one that's hard to deny. The more we compare, the more we begin to internalize these judgments and the more pressure we feel to keep up. It creates a cycle, one that's difficult to break free from, because who doesn't want a better life? The desire for improvement is universal, and so is the frustration that comes with constantly feeling like we're not measuring up. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. We see these effects most clearly during special occasions like the New Year. In years past, these holidays were a time of joy, a time to visit friends and family, exchange warm wishes, and share in the excitement of the season. But now, it's not unusual to hear about people opting to stay home, ignoring the celebrations in favor of rest or solitude. It's not that people no longer care about these traditions, it's that they've lost their emotional meaning. The truth is that many of us have become so caught up in the hustle and bustle of modern life that even the most cherished traditions start to feel like obligations. There's no longer that sense of genuine emotion or connection that once made these gatherings feel special. Instead, there's a sense of exhaustion, a quiet yearning for peace and simplicity. People don't feel the need to visit anymore because they're too drained, too mentally fatigued, to engage in the kind of socializing that once brought them joy. But it's more than just physical exhaustion. It's emotional exhaustion, too. Amid all the socializing, there's a feeling of emptiness, of disconnection. The act of visiting has lost its meaning and its purpose. What was once a moment of bonding now feels like an exercise in keeping up appearances. Unless we slow down and reevaluate the way we connect with others, these interactions will continue to feel shallow and unfulfilling. People may still gather, but their hearts won't be in it. They'll go through the motions, but without any real connection. And over time, this disconnect can grow, leaving many to choose solitude as a way of protecting their peace. In the end, it's not about rejecting socializing altogether. It's about recognizing when those visits and interactions are doing more harm than good. It's about finding a balance between connecting with others and protecting your mental health. The key is to live life on your terms, without the pressure of comparison or the expectation of fitting into a mold that doesn't serve you. In a world that's constantly moving faster, sometimes the most radical thing you can do is slow down, enjoy the moments that truly matter, and find peace in solitude. After all, it's in those moments of quiet that we often find the most clarity and the most meaningful connections, both with ourselves and with others. As we reflect on the impact of economic differences, social comparisons, and the emotional weight they carry, it's important to remember that true peace comes from within. By recognizing how these dynamics affect our relationships and mental well-being, we can begin to make more conscious choices about how we engage with others. We don't have to let societal pressures or material comparisons define our happiness. Sometimes, stepping back, embracing solitude, and living life on our terms can be the most fulfilling way forward. So, what have you learned from this discussion? What is one thing you plan to bring into practice in your life moving forward? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video and found it insightful, please leave a comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to bring you more content that encourages meaningful reflection and personal growth. Thank you for watching.